Hi, everyone. This is Teresa Nutt from Closeted Creatives Coaching, and I want to welcome you to the Self-Love Summit. Today, I have a special guest, Alexis Rose. She began her remarkable healing journey in 2009. Sparked by a family tragedy, she began to piece together for the first time a personal history of abuse and trauma. Supported by her spirituality and writing, as well as family and friends, she has profoundly grown and changed over the years. While learning to live with the effects of her trauma and working with the deficits caused by PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, she has co-authored 3 inspirational books. Her newest book, Untangled, speaks to the courage, resilience, and triumph over her unimaginable hardship. Alexis is an experienced speaker on the topics of living with post-traumatic stress disorder. She is also an active blogger who writes about PTSD, mental health, and trauma, with a bit of poetry sprinkled in along the way. Welcome, Alexis. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm really happy to be here.
So I'm going to jump right in and ask you the big question. What is your own experience with the journey to self-love, Alexis?
You know, that is such a good question. And when you sent me the questions, I looked at that and it was like, that's not something that just bounces off the top of my head. You know, it's something that I've really had to struggle with. You know, I was the type of person who always put other people first. You know, I wanted to be super mom and super worker and super friend and super wife and super everything. But nowhere in that narrative was, I want to be super lovable to me. I just never thought of myself deserving self-love. So, and the concept never really even entered my mind until I started this journey towards health, because I found that I couldn't really get my mental health back until I started having some sort of relationship with myself. So even saying that now makes me go, oh, it's just kind of like, oh, it gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, because you know, if you have a relationship with yourself, you know, you are in touch with who you are, what you're feeling, what your emotions are, what you're thinking. And it's all of a sudden, you know, it's more of an inward locus of control versus, you know, I'll just care about everybody else and then I'll be fine.
Absolutely. And I think, so Alexis and I have had many conversations about trauma. And we almost did a workshop together that fell through. But bottom line, one of the, quote, side effects, I guess, of trauma is often that it is so much easier to put your attention on everyone else and sort of feed and nurture yourself in that way. And so I'm really hearing that one of the lessons for you on this healing journey has been about making it okay to turn that same attention inward to yourself.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, because it is a lot easier if I know somebody is struggling, or, oh my gosh, if I know even a tornado hit somewhere, it's really easy for me to just not obsess, but just feel that, oh my gosh, you know, I hope they're okay. And, you know, I just, all those people that lost everything. And I think that's really good, because I do believe we need to show compassion to others, and we need to show compassion out in the world. But it's really kind of that putting your oxygen mask on first. And really, I think sometimes we can be I'm so worried about other people and how they're feeling and what can I do, and that's where your attention goes. Where it's really can be kind of an excuse to not go, well, wait a second. You know, what is that about? Is there something inside myself I don't want to deal with right now? Do I need to show myself compassion? But it's just easier to show other people that compassion, which I think is it's a tricky dance as you're walking. And I'm not sure that's just with trauma people. I think that, you know, that's that can be kind of a tendency with some other people I know too, where I look at them and go, well, you haven't had, well, everyone's had trauma in their life. That's a given. But it's like, oh, look, you're thinking just like I am. Kind of nice. It's kind of nice because across the board, we're all kind of human, and that's the discovery I've really made over the last 8 years is that, once you're an adult, we all kind of do the same human things. It's just whether or not we talk about them, which is why I'm so excited to do this with you, because you're bringing out this subject that can make people feel kind of prickly inside, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for pointing out, it's not just people with trauma, but I think it's more heightened in people who've been through serious trauma. And I would also generalize that many women are sort of programmed to be constantly sending their attention elsewhere. And so self-love might be, even like a dirty word, like a taboo, like I can't spend that time and attention on myself. There's too many things to do and too many people to look after. And look at the state of our world. I mean, it could be so easy to sort of get swallowed in the endless to-do lists and the PTAs and everything else we want to accomplish. And we just never find the time to tend to our own hearts. So thank you for bringing that up, that it's beyond just the trauma piece, but I think it's a larger sort of, and then living in Minnesota, as you and I both do, the whole Minnesota nice just feeds that whole disorder.
Right? Let me just apologize for everything first.
Yes.
Right? It's just, I'm so sorry that I took that parking spot even though I was here first. And I hope that didn't hurt your feelings. And, I'm going to go into the shopping, center now and just obsess about, oh gosh, I wonder if they needed that parking spot more than I did. Where it's like, no, that was my parking spot and let's move on with your day.
That is a fabulous and fun example. Thank you. So what is the biggest challenge you've faced on your own journey to self-love and acceptance, and what helped you move through it?
I think the biggest challenge for me was I lived kind of in a world where I couldn't show other people who I was, right? I always had these masks on. I'm always going to be your smiley friend. I'm always going to be all about you. Because I was always afraid that if people knew who I was, they would run the other way. I mean, talk about no self-love, right? And so I think that part of my journey was to just be my authentic self. And so once I started being my authentic self and letting people see me, that was my first step towards self-love. And Teresa, I got to be honest with you, even I don't use that word at all. And so even using it today in this interview context it just kind of evokes a lot of stirrings on the inside. And I'm wondering, as all your listeners, if that will, stir things up too, because like you said, it feels like kind of a dirty word. So I think, once I started being my authentic self, knowing that I wanted to heal and figuring out, well, why do I want to heal? I wanted to heal not for everybody else. All of a sudden, I didn't want to heal for my family, for my friends, for, the outside reasons. I wanted to heal because I wanted to live in the truth. I wanted to live with, blinders off, in the truth, whatever that truth is. And so that's all about kind of that self-love thing. That was, if I want to live in the truth, that's all about me and taking care of me. And so my journey was to walk through that and to kind of check myself. Like every time I would get close to, kind of let yourself be, let yourself sit with it. You're okay. You're worth it. You deserve it. Instead of, I'm so strong, I can get through anything. I think that's when things started changing, and that's kind of how my journey was. And I did that through, I've done a lot of therapy. I've done it with a lot of writing. I've done it with an amazing support system. I found that people throughout these 8 years, the people who kind of aren't in that same kind of commitment, whatever it is, they kind of went away from me. My friendships have changed tremendously. And I have found that the more that I am able to have self-love, the more I'm able to give authentic love. And instead of that, I've always been that kind of like mother, I will mother everybody. Oh my gosh. I would say that is the one thing. It doesn't even matter if I've known you 5 minutes. People are like, oh my gosh, you're just kind of a mother, aren't you? So, but now I think it's more like three-dimensional. I still mother everybody. I don't know why. I just do. And but at the same time, I kind of mother myself. I also use a lot of I do yoga a lot. I exercise a lot, and I've learned through this journey that there's different kinds of yoga I need to do, and there's different kind of exercise I need to do. I love that that endorphin release. I just love it because I kind of need it. But at the same time, when I'm not being self-loving towards myself, that can kind of work against me and make me more agitated. So then I know I need to do quieter yoga practices, lots of meditation, lots of self-foot rubs, things like that, that just kind of brings a lot of nurturing, into my body. And then being committed to sitting with it, right? Because we can do all these things, like we can hear, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, and then we go ahead and do it. And we may start to feel the effects of that, but often it's like, oh, I don't want to feel that. Now that's uncomfortable too. It's sometimes much more comfortable to live with to live with what we're used to. So I think that's been a part of the big journey of self-love too, is recognizing those perfect moments, recognizing those transformations, even if it's just for a moment, recognize it. And I think that is just really, just propelled me on this journey. That was a long-winded answer.
I love it. So I heard so many things. I want to highlight a few of them. One for sure that you just ended with was really sort of being okay with whatever arises. So whatever feelings, sitting with it. I love the way you said that. And it sounded also like you've developed this sort of responsiveness within yourself. In other words, sometimes it's okay to do exercise that's really endorphin raising, and sometimes I need to do something more gentle based on what's going on for me. So a real responsiveness to your own internal experience and what you most need in the moment. There were so many things, and one thing I just wanted to share, having known Alexis very personally and professionally, we're both writers, you do sort of have this super nurturing energy, and it is one of the things I find transforming about our relationship is I know that no matter how I show up, you will accept me unconditionally. Mm-hmm. That is not something that I experience a lot in the world. So I just wanted to say that from a personal perspective, wow, to be so unconditionally accepted is something that I think your journey has made you, maybe you've always been that way, but I think your journey has made you even more qualified to really be with people no matter how they're showing up.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. I mean, just right, because, full disclosure, we have a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful friendship that's lasted, years now. And And thank you. And I'd like to say that it is very reciprocal. I feel the same way with you. It doesn't matter how I show up. In fact, you know, the fact that I'm sitting here in my bathrobe during this.
No masks on, all the wisdom showing up. I love it. So thank you. I just wanted to highlight a few things because even though it's felt like a long answer, there were so many great nuggets in it that I just wanted to tweak a couple of them. So you might have answered this, and I'm going to ask it anyway. So based on your experience in working with your PTSD and your healing journey, it's kind of like, how does the experience of self-love or the lack of it show up? How does it sort of make it harder or easier for you when you're noticing maybe there are some days when self-love is not as present for you? And how does that turn out versus the days when you are more able to tune into that self-acceptance and self-love?
That is a really, really good question. So for me, it's really easy for me to go to, I'm not worthy, just some real basic self-esteem kind of things. So when my symptoms show up, it's what tends to happen is, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I mean, what is the matter with me? I've survived this. I've been working on this for so long. Just get over it. Are you lazy? Oh my gosh, you're so worthless. Oh my gosh, what aren't you getting? Does that ring a bell? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that happens with you, but it's that kind of that when my symptoms show up, instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling this way, and it's the result of this, and this is what triggered it. So instead of, and what feelings is that bringing up? So instead of going to the feelings and then working through that and sitting with it, or just, or, you know, whatever happens, I will often turn against myself, you know, and that is not self-love at all. That is just self-deprecating. And, you know, I say things to myself I would never say to anybody else, just never. Like if somebody came to me and said, I'm having a really bad day, I'm super triggered because of XYZ, and I'm just feeling really scared, and I'm feeling full of fear, and, you know, I just can't seem to feel very grounded, I would not look at them and say, you know, you're kind of worthless, and you should be trying harder, and wow, you're really lazy. What's the matter with you? I never would say that. Those things would never enter even, you know, sometimes people say things to us and we go, gosh, I guess I wouldn't have made that decision in our heads, but we just listen. But never would I think of those words with somebody else, right? And so that's how it shows up, which is really quite difficult because it is something I struggle with. It's just part of, you know, when you've been through severe trauma, you know, people have done their best to make you feel not human, very objectified, and that just really works on your self-esteem. So when that happens, it takes a while sometimes for me to check it and go, oh, wait a minute, no, I'm not being lazy. And really what I do to check it is I reach out to people. I'm like, I'm having a really bad day, or I feel really lazy. Am I lazy? You know, and of course they're going to say no. I know the answers are going to say, but I think that sometimes we need other people to keep reminding us of, no, you're worth it, and you're doing a good job, and you're okay. So I think that the more we hear that, it does land, and, you know, my belief is it does land, and we can come out of that kind of negative than negative self-love we get into, and we can turn it around a little quicker. And maybe we don't start saying those wonderful things to ourselves, but I think we begin to believe them and trust that the people who are giving us that information, that they're not going to lie to us, right? Because the people that have hurt us have told lies to our soul. The people we have in our lives, they are telling the truths to our soul, which I think has been a great part of my journey, to just trust that, okay, I might not be feeling those things right now, but I am going to trust that this is the truth, and I'm going to live with that. And then it does start to show up in different ways. It's like, oh, look at that. Look, I feel really good at this moment. And really right now, as we're talking, what is not perfect about this moment,
Yeah, thank you. Boy, you said some really important things. I heard two really loud and clear things. One is sort of what I think of as making sure you know who the people are who are going to hold you and be nurturing and supportive, because we all need that sometimes. None of us can hold positive regard for ourselves 24/7. It's just not really, I don't believe, humanly possible, the way our minds are wired. Mm-hmm. So having the people, my personal metaphor for it is, it's sort of like, are these people that inflate your balloon or deflate it? And you want people that are going to inflate your balloon.
Yeah.
That you can go to in your times of trouble.
Yeah.
So definitely that. And then the other thing I heard you say was sort of almost knowing that it's just part of the process, almost just sort of yep, this is going to arise, and it's just my job to bring myself to awareness and course correct to the best of my ability. And I don't know anyone who doesn't have some negative self-talk. I haven't met them yet. So
yeah,
it's a pretty common experience, and I loved how you talked about it. And in our personal conversations, I believe a couple of your terms came to my mind as I was listening. One was Mr. Doubt showed up with his suitcase, or something was your, you have a great phrase about it. And it's like, yes, isn't that true? We just have these sort of alter egos who are not always the most supportive sort of show up and think they're going to take up residence. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do when that happens?
Yeah. Right. That is so true. Yeah. When Mr. Doubt comes knocking on the door, and it's like, I don't really want to invite you in for tea, but I will listen to what you have to say and then get out. I'm sorry, but you need to leave. Hope you had some great tea. Bye-bye.
I'm going to hear you, and now you can go.
That's right.
So Alexis, what is your favorite self-love practice?
I think I have a few of them right now. Writing is definitely my favorite. And I try to write every day. Well, I'm kind of compelled to write. And before I started this journey, I never wrote anything, nothing. So I listen to what I want to write, and then I write about it. So, and on my blog, I write, and before I hit publish, I always have to say to myself, okay, you're putting yourself out in the world. Do you care enough about yourself to do this, to share of yourself? So I believe that has been part of it. Hitting publish before I send messages out on my blog, or writings on my blog. Writing books has been a huge expression of self-love. Huge. Because I lived in the shadows up until about 16 months ago. So I went from living in the shadows, which is not, it's probably survival, which I don't need to be in that mode. So that's not self-love, to, coming out of the shadows, just 16 months. And so that is that experience when I released my memoir, and the feedback I've gotten, and listening to the feedback, that's been a huge expression of self-love. I definitely make sure that I stop and breathe. Because I can often live, and I don't know if many people do, but I can often not, of course, breathing is involuntary, but to really take those deep breaths, to really get the air inside, and do I feel my feet on the ground? Make sure I stay grounded. That is a huge favorite self-love expression I do. Yoga is really important in my life, no matter how it shows up, because for me, you have to be present when you're doing yoga. And being present is a huge form of self-love to me. So that is the way I can incorporate that. And then I think definitely having a beautiful, wonderful family and support system and being fully engaged and present is also my favorite expression of self-love. And it's interesting because we started this interview with me saying, I wanted to always be super friend and super mom and, super wife and all that kind of stuff, super everything. And now I'm more settled and I want to be present and I want to show up and I want it to be participatory versus, standing alone, just exuding. So I think those are my favorite self-love kinds of things. And also, and this has been the hardest for me, taking the time to be quiet and acknowledging the things that I've done and saying, good job. In spite of everything, in spite of every obstacle, in spite of no way can you do this, in spite of the odds of me even getting healthy, I just kept saying, no, no, I'm going to do this. And no, I don't accept no. And acknowledging that, I was fully committed to myself. And it's okay to say, you kind of rocked it. It's like, sometimes, because I'm not a flowery speaker when it comes to myself. But I've learned to be able to say, you know what, Alexis, you rock, which is huge for me. That's my self-love. You rock.
I love it. I love it. Well, you offered so many great tools and practices, so thank you for sharing those. So is there a message you would like to share with this audience?
I think the message I'd like to share is, times can be really hard. Days can be really hard. It's especially what's going on in the world right now. I don't care what your world view is. There's some stuff going on in the world. We kind of talked about how you were feeling just the energy and wondering, what is going on this week. So I think the message that I really, really like to share is there are 24 hours in a day. In that 24 hours, there are perfect moments. So take time to recognize the perfect moments. If all of a sudden you look out your window and you see a beautiful blue sky, take a moment and just say, just be with that beautiful blue sky. If you maybe hear a child laughing as you're driving past a playground or anything, if you feel, if you rub your hand against your soft shirt, I think those are the things that that help us stay grounded, help us just kind of incorporate self-love and love out there in the world. So I think just remembering that in every day, in every 24 hours, even if we are grieving and going through an awful illness, there will be something in those 24 hours that will let us just say, oh, just for a second even. Doesn't have to be for minutes, just for a second. That's kind of, it's just how I go through the world, and I feel like that would be a message I'd like to share.
Thank you so much. And I just love your word, the perfect moment, noticing the perfect moments. I think that's so important. And I recently heard a spiritual teacher say, and this just resonates with what you said, sometimes the most loving thing to do is to say, this day really sucks, and I'm doing my best to get through it. Sort of not needing yourself to feel different, just knowing it's a really hard time and just holding it. You earlier said just sitting with what feelings you're having. So thank you. I think that is just beautiful. So what would you like to share about your book?
Well, I love to share my book. My book, it's a memoir, Untangled, and it's a story of resilience, courage, and triumph. And it came out about 16 months ago, and it's my journey. It's it's sort of my journey. It was my journey at that moment in time, and so I survived unimaginable abuse for the first 20 years of my life, followed by 17 years of threats to stay silent. And, I worked around that, repressed my memories until I could no longer do that. So my book talks about, it talks about my life, but it's done in a way that I really get to the feelings of things versus the graphic details. So because I have found that feelings are feelings because we're humans, right? And maybe not everybody's able to express it, but I found a way to say, when I feel fear, maybe this is where it feels like, I feel like a wash rag is all bound up and tight, or your chest hurts or something like that. So it really gets to the feelings, how things felt. So, and then at the end of the book, it talks about, or not the end of the book, but in one of the sections, it talks about my journey of healing with PTSD, and it talks about PTSD because my purpose for coming out of the closet is to help destigmatize mental health, and in particular post-traumatic stress disorder, because that's what I know and that's what I live with. But my book has a lot of heart, and I love it. And I say that I love it so much. I was terrified when it was first published, but I've gotten some wonderful feedback, and it's reached a lot of people across all genres, which makes me thrilled. At first, I thought it would be this little niche book for people who've either been through trauma, know someone who's been through trauma, or if you're a professional working with trauma victims. But it's actually, I'm going to say working with trauma victims / survivors, right? But I found it's gone across all genres, and both male and female, have read it. So yeah, it's been a wonderful experience and a beautiful gift.
I love it. And I've read the book, and it was a page turner. So there's definitely a certain heaviness to it. Of course, it's not going to be a beach read, but it is so well written, and it is so focused on the resilience and the triumph and the positive trajectory despite unthinkable circumstances. So I just loved the book. So I wanted to just put in my 2 cents worth. So my friend Alexis, how can people reach you?
I have sent some links, which I think will be on there, but they definitely can reach me by email. Do you want me to say my email?
Why don't you? There will be links, but it's nice to hear it on the interview.
Okay, so my email is atribeuntangled@gmail.com. So they can reach me via email. My blog, which I love my blog, and I would love it if people checked out my blog, followed me, or read through some of the things. My blog is atribeuntangled.com. And yeah, those are the 2 ways to reach me. I mean, it's my blog and my website. So you just go on atribeuntangled.com, and you'll find the blog part. And then my book, Untangled, is available on Amazon, and I gave you the links for that too. Yes. I know this is going internationally, But if you're in the local, in Minnesota, it's in 2 bookstores. So I don't know. Do I mention that too?
Why not?
Okay. So in Minnesota, you can purchase Untangled at Lake Country Booksellers in White Bear Lake. And you can also purchase it at Majors and Quinn in Minneapolis.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this interview, Alexis. Do you have any final parting words, or are you feeling like we've covered it all?
You know, I feel like we've covered it all, but my parting words are thank you. Thank you so much for including me in your summit. I'm so honored to be part of it, and I'm very excited to hear the other speakers when this is all rolled out. And Teresa, you're fabulous. You're a fabulous coach and a fabulous person, and I feel very honored that you included me in this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. My goodness, just fill my heart right up, Miss Alexis. It's a pleasure having you, and thank you for bringing your unique perspective and shining your light out in the world. We are so fortunate to have a survivor who isn't hiding in the shadows, who is willing to come out into the light, and in that way has touched so many lives in a short amount of time. So how lucky we are as a world. Okay, thank you, and have a great day, Alexis.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.